Now, to move to a rather different subject, US TV presenter Melissa Bachman, you may remember, recently created a storm over her hunting and standing as a trophy display with a male lion in South Africa. Industry experts have defended her, stating that the hunt was legal, and the South African hunting industry does bring in billions, which are ploughed back into conservation. Let's talk now to Herman Meyerdrix, who is president of the Professional Hunters Association of South Africa. Good morning to you, Herman. Let's just try and put this in perspective. How important is hunting for our economy?
Based on the figures that we received, good morning, David. Based on the figures that we received in 2012 from research that was done by the University of the Northwest, it would seem that the hunting industry in total generated about 6.7 billion rand, or contributed that much to the GDP. We had about 9,000 foreign visitors hunting in South Africa in 2012, and they on average spend about 140,000 rand per hunter here.
Well, obviously you speak for the hunting industry. That's the capacity we're interviewing you in. Looking at some of the issues around it, it seemed to me that a lot of the distaste at this particular photograph was taken was the way it was done. It seemed undignified. It seemed a frivolous way to go about it. Should there be dignity in hunting?
I think there is dignity in hunting if you go about it the correct way. I think this thing was blown out of proportion. I think the fact that it was a lady that was in the photograph maybe added something to that. I don't think there was necessarily anything particularly distasteful about the photograph.
Yeah, and then looking at the role of hunting, and there are people who say you can't possibly shoot elephants. If you allowed the elephant population in a properly managed area to grow, they would destroy the environment for all the other animals. There comes a point where even though elephants are wonderful creatures and so on, you have to cull them. So why not make money out of it, I suppose, is the argument. And why not sell that culling to people who are prepared to put money in, which can be reinvested in conservation?
Correct. You couldn't have summed it up better.
Right. Well, I'm not a hunter at all. It's not something I do. But what about exporting elephants to Kenya? What about finding different ways to manage the regional populations of animals as opposed to just the ones that we have in South Africa?
I don't think that is a viable option right now, to export animals. That's certainly not something that's in our field of expertise within the Professional Hunters Association. We have to look at managing elephants in a sensible, economically sustainable manner. And trophy hunting certainly is. It's got a very low impact. You take out selected bulls that are past their breeding time, and the money generated by that is considerable.
Now, with all this attention on the rhinos, now that's a different story entirely. The rhinos are an endangered species, and we can't seem to stop the poaching. What is the problem with that? You'd think with modern technology, with satellite scanning, with tagging and so on, you'd think you could keep an eye on every rhino and who else was in the environment. What is the problem that we can't actually stop the rhino poaching?
Well, the problem is many-fold. I think the demand far outstrips the supply. We need to look at another way of saturating or feeding that supply. There is a strong drive to have the trade in rhino horn, which is illegal at the moment, to have that legalized, and there will be, I'm sure, a motion at the next conference of the parties of CITES that is held in South Africa in 2016 to do that. Our government certainly seems to be looking at something along those lines. So do the Private Rhino Owners Association. What we're doing at the moment is simply not working. You can take out the foot soldiers and they are just replaced by more foot soldiers. So we need to find ways of striking to, at a higher level to stop the poaching. The statement that rhino are endangered, or white rhino in particular are endangered, is not entirely accurate. They're not endangered at the moment. The poaching levels are certainly a massive concern, and I think the increase in the poaching levels are a bigger concern, but rhino are still increasing at a higher rate in South Africa than the poaching levels at the moment.
Do you hunt rhino?
Yes, we do. We do believe that the sustainable and legal hunting of trophy hunting of rhino contributes to rhino conservation. If it wasn't for the trophy hunting of rhino, we wouldn't have had the numbers that we had today. We have close to 19,000 white rhino in South Africa at the moment, of which about 5,500 is in private ownership. If there is no incentive for private owners to keep those rhino, they simply wouldn't have them, and there wouldn't be the rhino numbers that we have today. So yes, the sustainable legal trophy hunting of rhino definitely contributes to rhino conservation.
That's the paradox of it. Just getting back to the commercial side, I have a statistic here that in 1960 there were only 3 game farms in South Africa. Now apparently there are 10,000. Now that must range from half a rugby field, which is a bird sanctuary, through to the Kruger Park and others. What's the commercial state of these game farms? Are they in good shape? Is government helping them? Is it easy to do business with a game farm?
The game farms are growing. The game ranching industry is growing, and the hunting industry in South Africa is growing. Right now, we have about 20 million hectares in private land ownership that are considered to be game farms, as opposed to about 7.5 million hectares of state parks. So it's certainly growing. You can see that in the growing game prices. You can see that in the growing demand and the growing number of hunters visiting in South Africa. So the industry is healthy. The industry is doing well. We are obviously viewing government as a partner in this, and we would like to work with government as much as we can, and we do have a good working relationship with them.
Thanks to Herman Meyer-Drix, who is president of the Professional Hunters Association of South Africa.